for this is either brass or copper.
Okay.
So those are the two kinds of metal that will adhere. You also need water-soluble flux, which is what I have in this little thing here. This is, you can think of this as like the glue that will help the solder stick to it. And I can remind you of all this later. That's fine.
Okay, because I want to write a list.
That's fine. And you paint the solder, or the flux onto the piece of metal that you're going to be working with. And you use a pretty generous amount. And then this is lead-free solder that you can get here from Janet or the hardware store. And what you need to do is either have a stamp picked out that you're going to try and use, or you can stamp it with a metal stamp after it is cooled. So I'm going to light my torch.
Sarah, that was Jennifer who has the rubber stamps that she's wanting to sell.
Oh, okay. I gave her my phone number when she was
She
here.
lost it already.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Are we recording or are we just doing? Oh.
I can do it again. So now I'm just painting it on with this silver solder here. I'm going to try to bridge that gap if I can. Okay, now it's pretty hot. So I'm going to take my stamp here. And while it's still molten, I'm going to impress the stamp into the metal. Not too hard that it wants to overflow, but hard enough that it will take the impression. And you have to use only red rubber stamps with this. This one's a little pinker than red, so we shall see. And you need to let it cool pretty completely. It will still be too hot to touch, but it will be cool enough that the impression will have taken. So I would say probably a good 45 to 90 seconds, depending on how big your piece of metal is. Mine looks pretty cold, so I'm going to pull it. And that made a pretty good impression. I'm going to quench it in water. Careful not to pick it up because it is still very hot. I'm going to throw it in some water here. Get it cooled off, and then I'm going to brush it with a brass bristled brush to get some of that burnt flux gel and discoloration from the torch off of there. And that made a pretty good impression of a feather. Now you could color this or patina it with alcohol inks, any kind of medium that will stick to the solder metal. You can hammer it, stamp a word in it afterwards. Opportunities are endless.